The Last of Us is a PlayStation 3 exclusive released from developer Naughty Dog. Combining elements of action and survival horror, the game is set in a post-apocalyptic United States where an airborne virus has infected much of humanity, and nature has reclaimed civilization. At the center of this is our heroes, Joel and Ellie, as they make their way through the devastated landscape. Now, I have a lot of ground to cover, so without further ado, here are the top 15 reasons why The Last of Us is awesome.
This is our routine. Day and night, all we do is survive. It never lets up. He tells me how these streets were crowded with people just going about their lives. Must have been nice.
Coming in at number 15 is the fact that The Last of Us is an entirely new IP. Now, after 7 years of developing the widely popular Uncharted series, the developers decided to go in a different direction with their latest title. While at their core, both franchises share the same trademark blend of action, combat, and platforming, the difference between these two titles lies in their execution, specifically the decision to go into the survival horror genre. Now, these differences will be explained later in this video, but suffice it to say that Naughty Dog's standard for breaking new ground is still very much alive. Coming in at number 14 is the story. Set 2 decades after a cordyceps-type fungus has killed millions, it's a future where survivors are hemmed into quarantine zones and are completely under the heels of the US government. And it is here where survivors Joel, a hardened black marketeer, and Ellie, a 14-year-old girl, must work together if they wish to survive avoiding the infected, as well as scavengers outside the quarantine zones. Now, with a backstory like that, gamers can't help but be excited to play this title. Coming in at number 13 is the audio. The infected in The Last of Us use a form of echolocation to track down their enemies, similar to how bats shriek in order to see where they're going. Those infected make a clicking sound in order to see, even in complete darkness. Now, the audio plays a large role in this game, lending much of the fear and tension during gameplay entirely to the sound design. And when played in real time, this creates one of the most terrifying experiences in video games to date, and one that we can't wait to play. Coming in at number 12 is Dynamic Stealth. Now, Dynamic Stealth is a new gameplay mechanic that doesn't necessarily refer to how a player approaches any given situation, but rather to the AI itself. The infected in The Last of Us communicate with one another as they search through rooms and split up to track down their enemies, and it will be up to the player to react instinctively as they slowly but surely progress through the game. Added to this is the fact that the game doesn't pause as you rifle through your inventory, adding that much more fear to an already tense situation. Coming in at number 11 is the motion capture. Now, when done right, motion capture can add a new sense of realism to what are otherwise artificial characters. And it's sad to say that nowadays, this is one of the aspects of game design that many of us take for granted. Thankfully, The Last of Us displays the best in what motion capture has to offer, not just during the cutscenes, but during gameplay, combat, and yes, even the voice acting. And it will no doubt showcase the best of video game design today. Coming in at number 10 is the voice acting. Now, when Uncharted was released as a launch title for the PS3, one of the best achievements of that game was its superb voice acting. And The Last of Us hopes to follow in that same tradition. Joel is voiced by Troy Baker, best known for his recent portrayal of Booker DeWitt in BioShock Infinite. By contrast, Ellie is voiced by actress Ashley Johnson. Now, as the success of The Last of Us hinges on the emotional interactions between its main characters, the casting of the leads was crucial. Thankfully, Naughty Dog has made 2 great excellent choices that will likely shine through in the final product. Coming in at number 9 is survival horror. Now, as we've seen, The Last of Us is a genre-defining experience that blends elements of survival, action, combat, and stealth. In addition to shooting and melee combat, the game utilizes a cover system as well as a third-person view as the player takes control of Joel, while the character of Ellie is controlled by an AI entirely throughout the duration. Is it anything we haven't seen in survival horror before? Probably not, but I'm very interested to see how this developer approaches survival horror. Coming in at number 8 is The Infected. The concept for The Last of Us came after watching the BBC documentary Planet Earth, which documented a fungus that took over an ant's brain and produced a growth coming out of its head. In this world, that fungus has jumped to humans, infecting those who breathe in the contagious spores, eventually turning them into mindless creatures. One thing the developers made clear very early on is that the infected aren't zombies, and the decision to go this route is much more bone-chilling. The idea that nature can just as easily take over humans as it can the rest of civilization. Coming in at number 7 is the score. Now, the music for this game is composed by Gustavo Santaolalla, a two-time Oscar winner for the films Babel and Brokeback Mountain, as well as the composer for other films including The Road and 21 Grams. In past interviews, the developer stated that they wanted the game to focus more on emotion rather than horror. And as it tends to focus more on characters rather than setting, I think it's safe to say that Gustavo is a more than suitable choice for the job. Coming in at number 6 is the company Naughty Dog. Not only does The Last of Us mark the first time the developer has become a two-team studio, but it's also the second new intellectual property they've introduced on the same hardware generation. The project was headed by Bruce Straley, former lead designer for Enslaved, Odyssey to the West, and The Last of Us was in production for nearly 2 years, even as some of the team was still finishing up Uncharted 3, Drake's Deception. Now normally I wouldn't put this as a reason on this list, but seeing as how Enslaved and The Last of Us are so similar, I couldn't help but take notice. Coming in at number 5 is Emotional Resonance. Now, on release of the initial trailer for the game Dead Island, the team at Naughty Dog were concerned that both games would be too similar, as they both explore the human and emotional side of an apocalyptic event. However, on release of the aforementioned game, the team realized that the gameplay didn't match up to what was shown in the trailer. To that end, lead designer Neil Druckmann felt that the standard for storytelling in video games wasn't where it should be, and wanted their trailer to be very representative of what they were going for with this game. I tell you, I can't remember the last time I've seen such emotional resonance in a survival horror title, and it's clear that what they're trying to achieve is something new, bold, and innovative, never before seen in video games. Coming in at number 4 is apocalyptic science fiction. Now, it's clear there's no shortage of inspiration that The Last of Us draws upon. In fact, some of the major influences include the novels The Road, No Country for Old Men, and I Am Legend, as well as the comic book series The Walking Dead. Other critics have cited films like 28 Days Later, The Day of the Triffids, and Children of Men as additional sources. Now, of course, science fiction in video games is nothing new. You have your great games, and then you have the other ones that sort of fall by the wayside. But seeing as how I'm such a huge science fiction fan, this reason definitely bears repeating. Coming in at number 3 is Wide Linear. Now, on the surface, The Last of Us looks like a straight-up linear game, with the ultimate goal of the player to get from point A to point B. But the developers didn't want to pigeonhole the player into taking one specific route. To that end, they came up with the concept of Wide Linear. While the game is ostensibly a linear title, the openness of the environments and the multiple ways to approach any given situation allow the player more variety and more choice when it comes to gameplay. Do you go into a new area, guns blazing, killing every enemy in sight? Or do you decide to play it stealthy, bypassing those enemies completely? Ultimately, the game is about choice, and how you choose to approach The Last of Us is at the heart of this title. Coming in at number 2 is the Balance of Power AI. Now, according to the developer, Naughty Dog has developed a new proprietary AI system called the Balance of Power. This new system allows enemies to react realistically in any combat situation they are placed in, whether it's taking cover if they see the player, calling for help if they need it, and even taking advantage of a player's weaknesses, such as when they run out of ammo or when they're being attacked by other enemies. Now, this has been one of the aspects that Naughty Dog has been highlighting in their previous demos and trailers, and if what we've seen is any indication, then we can expect some really fantastic dynamic gameplay ahead. And coming in at number 1 is Ellie. While the fungus epidemic is the main backdrop of the story, The Last of Us is not a zombie game, but rather a love story of a father-daughter-like relationship largely inspired by the interactions between Nathan Drake and Victor Sullivan from the studio's Uncharted series. Joel is a survivor and anti-hero, while Ellie is a 14-year-old girl who has no experience of the world pre-apocalypse, and it is their relationship that is the main driving force of this game. It's clear that the developers wanted the player to be as emotionally invested in the characters as the characters are emotionally invested with one another, and it is for this reason that Ellie takes the number 1 spot. Now I want to hear what you have to say. Do you agree with my reasons? Do you disagree with them? Is there a reason that I may have forgotten that you want to add to this list? Feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below, and as always, feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel. That being said, I'm the Millennium Gamer, signing off.